Welcome back to the morning show right here on the Rise News channel. Ahead of Saturday's governorship election in Ondo State, electoral body INEC has started distributing sensitive electoral materials. Electoral officials from 18 local governments received their materials at the Central Bank office in the capital, Akure. Agents of political parties, election observers, security agencies were also present to monitor the process. The state resident electoral commissioner says the commission is ready to conduct free and fair polls.
The exercise, this distribution exercise, is going on very smoothly. The farthest local governments have started moving to their local governments. All the other local governments, they have received their materials, they are checking, and they are loading the vehicles. We are distributing today, and this is just 10 minutes after 12. The vehicles are already moving. Ajayi has left, Ondo has left, Okitipupa and Irele, they are loading, they will soon leave. Then we'll move to the next set. Akoko, northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, Owo, and Ose. They have collected all their materials, and they will leave any moment from now.
With the level of preparedness of INEC towards free, fair, and credible elections in Ondo State, because there are some materials that will be taken to riverine areas, and those local governments like Ajayi, Ondo, Irele are very far from here. So they have to move early so that they can get there as early as possible.
All the political parties are around to view it, and what the INEC is doing is transparent, and you can see it yourselves as the third realm of the society. So I, as a political party, we believe in their judgment, we believe in their capacity, we believe in their experience. Any other thing you can think about it, they are well grounded. They know what they are doing. And we as a political party, we abide with their rules and regulations.
Meanwhile, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, has assured all political parties and voters of the commitment of security agencies to remaining impartial in the election. General Musa had a meeting with the head of security agencies in Ondo State ahead of the vote. He said he was in the state on the directive of President Bola Tinubu.
Ondo State will be secured. Their security is guaranteed. Nobody is going to intimidate them. The security forces are working like a team. It's a teamwork. We are one family as Nigerians. I want to appeal to all Nigerians, especially all of the good people of Ondo State, that they should all come out en masse to vote for whom they want. It is important that they come out so that they can vote for people that will make a difference for them. And our own job is to ensure that we provide that enabling environment to do that, and we're going to do that. Remember, just a few weeks ago, it was Ondo State, and the security forces did remarkably well. We're going to remain committed, impartial in all we do. We're not taking sides. We're neutral in our approach, just to make sure that the operation goes. We give all the support to INEC and the Nigerian police.
Joining us now is Segun, Sopitan, Chairman, Accountability, Candour and Transparency Network. Do you think these elections will be transparent?
I doubt it.
You doubt it? Tell me why.
First of all, I mean, why do we have... I think the answer to that question would probably lie in the fact that we've got a soldier, a senior military official, talking to us about security in the elections. This is an anomaly, and it's something that we have now normalized. It's something that Nigerians see as the standard. It's expected. The Nigeria police have deployed 22,000, men, for this election alone. This is abnormal. We've just witnessed the elections in the United States, and we probably shouldn't be comparing ourselves. Some of my friends will say that democracy is over 200 years old. But we've got to start someday to begin to say, look, this is how it's supposed to be, and work towards that. Why are elections so militarized? It's obviously because the transparency question is a big question. The political actors, politicians, the political parties, the electorate, even parts of the security forces are all out there to fulfill the interest of certain parties and not necessarily of democracy and of the people of that state. So, and as long as we have that, we will not have good governance. And we will not have, like President Obasanjo will say, the dividends of democracy will continue to evade the people of Nigeria generally.
Let's talk about the issue of federal might. because, the last election we can refer to is the Edo election. But generally, we've seen APC taking a very aggressive stance with regards to ensuring they don't lose any territory and ensuring they gain as many new states as possible. In the case of Ondo State, of course, it's about retaining the state. Is there any way in your imagination that federal might can ever be countered under this administration?
Well, it's going to be tough, because the federal government is very powerful, the federal government of Nigeria. And I always say that people underestimate the resources and the power and the clout that is wielded by the person at the center, just because of the, as far as I'm concerned, the skewed nature of the structure of our polity, skewed towards the center. Now, it's sad to say, but we have to now begin to think about the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, nostalgically. And that's sad to say, I find myself repeatedly having criticized him very ferociously, during his time and thinking, oh, this is the worst president we've ever had. But here we are, a year and a half into a new administration, and somebody is trumping that consistently on all measures. The Buhari that we remember, the guy didn't care. He's just aloof, picking his toothpick and all that. And whatever happens with the elections, he just says, let the winner win and all of that. We still had federal might come into play, but I think now it's a bit more ominous. The approach of the APC now. The president of the country now says to his party people, I will deliver this state to you. Don't worry. It shouldn't be. It's unstatesmanly. He is the president now, not an APC national leader. And I think that using the resources of the state to further the interest of a political party is not right, and we must stand against it, and we must continue to speak against it.
I never thought there would be a time in our democracy I was going to ask this question. You can call it stupid. Please, indulge me. Would you now call Buhari a better Democrat than President Tinubu? And I say that because you can call me stupid, but when we had President Buhari there, we had optics of an opposition person that got elected as governor going to thank the president of another political party, telling him thank you for making these elections free. That was what we saw under Buhari.
Absolutely.
But it looks like we'll never see that under this administration. So will you call President Buhari a better Democrat than President Tinubu?
He referred to himself as a reformed Democrat. He said he had dropped the military toga and was now a repentant Democrat. And I think that some might argue this, but I think that indeed he portrayed that. All of the major incidents that happened under his tenure with regards to respect for allowing the will of the people to prevail, he was always aloof. Think about the emergence of Senate President Bukola Saraki, how that happened. People actually turned back and said Buhari was very naive because he said, no, let the best person emerge, and he just simply showed a lack of interest, which I think is probably the way it should be in a normal place. Of course, you will still have some sort of negotiations and wanting somebody that will favor your approach to governance to emerge. But you shouldn't be overbearing in how you go about it, and he wasn't. This president, it's a year plus into his administration, so we're still watching, but the signs are not very, very encouraging. What happened in Ondo State was a travesty. A lot of the people on ground in that state do not believe that
do you think
their
what
will
in Edo will easily happen in Ondo?
I think we'll probably have it worse. Unfortunately, it's beginning to look as if our elections are getting worse and worse. From the general elections to the subsequent off-cycle elections, it's been from one terrible story to another. And, for those of us that observe these things, it's very discouraging. It simply means that the governance process is going to get worse because you can never get good governance without the engagement of the people. And people are disengaged from this process. Apathy is a real problem right now. People are not going out to vote. The ones that go out, they go out to collect money. The vote buying is a big problem and nobody is doing anything about it. The police talked about intelligence, the military talked about intelligence, and I always wonder, where's that intelligence? Because this vote buying happens right in broad daylight. It's not as if they go to hide in some dark corners to share the money. They share it out there. Immediately after you cast your vote, there's some representative of the party, and there's a signaling process that goes on, and they give you your payment for having cast the vote that they expected you to cast. So where are the security forces? Where's the EFCC? And all of that. So it's getting worse and worse, and we can only speak against this and continue to demand that the right things are done.
Okay. Now back to Ondo State. So most people feel it's a two-horse race between the two former deputy governors, PDP's Ajayi and APC's Aiyedatiwa. The Labour Party's candidate, Ebiseni, however, is saying that it's a two-horse race between himself and Lucky Aiyedatiwa. What are the dynamics that you think are going to come to play for tomorrow's poll?
Well, I think that to a very large extent, this is, I think Aiyedatiwa will coast home, based on the things that we just spoke about, the federal might, the influence of security forces, the lack of coordination in the opposition camp, especially the PDP, who hasn't really covered themselves in glory with the way they've gone about being the main opposition party, in the last couple of years. I do not see Ajayi being able to launch any strong challenge to the power of incumbency, which is always a factor, even if it's not federal might. Just the incumbency factor alone is always a big deal. And then talking about the others, you've seen, as usual, other parties lining up behind themselves to endorse one candidate or the other. And we've seen a few of them do that. Labour Party, unfortunately, with all of the hype that surrounded them, during the last general elections, it's turned out that was a personality cult rather than anything substantial from a structure point of view. So the Labour Party, the Ebiseni factor is just a little bit of drama distraction. with all due respect to them.
But concerning the ambition, they talked about the fact that there might be a Mimiko somewhere back in. Do you think that's true? Because he pretty much shoved that aside. But also, is it that the last 8 years with the APC has just been one that has been anti-democratic? Because on the flip side of the Buhari argument, I would say, okay, compared to Segun, he was a better Democrat. It was under Buhari too. We also had the third in an election becoming first.
Yeah.
So is it just an APC thing? Because under the last PDP administration, that was when we started having the waves of actually court upturning elections.
Yeah.
So that means the PDP actually wanted the rule of law and democracy to have its way. But since we've got to this APC, Buhari tried in some aspect, he wasn't concerned. But we can't also forget that Supreme Court ruling, which dramatis personae in that Supreme Court ruling are the highest echelons of Nigerian judiciary today.
Absolutely. I always shy away from the APC-PDP divide because to me, as a civil society person and who wants to be apolitical, I don't see a difference between the two parties. I don't see a difference between the 16 years of the PDP and now the 10 plus years that we've now had of the APC in terms of...
Was the economy better?
Well, it's arguable, it's debatable. Nigeria's economy has retrogressed consistently over time. We've never had it better. There's never a time that we can look back and say, it was better at this time.
But the empirical
it's always getting worse.
As at 2013-2014, Nigeria was over a 500 billion GDP.
Yeah.
Today is less than a 300
Absolutely.
billion GDP. So APC government did lose close to 200 billion out of the GDP.
People would argue.
Indicators.
People would argue that was coincidental rather than deliberate policy action that resulted in that. That was
really?
Because
deliberate policy action. Under Obasanjo, Nigeria grew 13 to 15% economic growth, and we maintained 6% economic growth. Today, 6% economic growth. Today is a mirage. We've had two recessions under an APC government.
Absolutely. So I think that the argument is that besides President Obasanjo, no matter what you have to say about him on the negative, the guy tried. He appeared to know what he was trying to achieve. The GSM revolution alone makes him the single most successful president that we've ever had. If you can use the word success and any president that Nigeria has ever had. I shy away from doing that. But the point I was just trying to make is that the PDP and the APC are not necessarily, I call them the evil twins, and I think I'm not the only one that does that. Everybody says that about them. So I don't want to paint one as being better than the other. I think they are both problems to us, which is why, for me, an Ebisheni and the Mimiko factor, if it exists, would have been, at least would have freshened up the process to provide a third alternative for people to go after. Unfortunately, I do have some insight into what's going on, within the Labour Party, and I can tell you that it's not pretty. And I don't see anything significantly different there.
How do we stop ourselves from sliding into becoming a one-party state? Because it currently looks like we're right on the trajectory towards that. What are the interventions that need to happen to stop this country from being a one-party state?
I think that the opposition politicians need to become less self-serving. They need to come together. They need to align. There are sections of civil society that have also decided that they will provide some support, in the background to some of these political tendencies, just to prevent what you talk about. Unfortunately, there isn't enough rallying, there isn't enough unity. A lot of the interests are divided. The divisions along tribe, along religion are really significant, and they prevent people from speaking with one voice. So that will be a problem. But I don't see us sliding into a one-party scenario simply because, again, the interests are not going to allow that to happen. The PDP still has a strong representation in the National Assembly, for example, and they will always, pander to at least trying to show that they're an opposition force, even though we all know that whatever the president wants.
Do you think they're going to be able to continue that? Because it seems that, with each passing development, it intensifies. The division intensifies.
It's tough. And I really don't envy the guys that are there. I know quite a number of them, and I know they're good guys. But when you are confronted with the kind of, what would I call, motivation that is presented to them financially, it's difficult to really stand for what you really believe in. And I think it's a struggle for these guys. But they will always continue to, because at the end of the day, their own personal interests would demand that they continue to maintain some level of independence and to continue to push back to some level. Otherwise, they will be consumed, and they will disappear. So I think that is the hope. We're still running a democracy. And as long as you've got democracy, then there will be opposition, there will be people speaking up and fighting back. Civil society is still vibrant to some degree. The media, you guys in the media are doing a fantastic job, in certain quarters, not everywhere. So sliding into a one-party state is not something that I think I am afraid of. I think it's not going to happen. However, you don't need to be a one-party state necessarily to have some sort of autocratic rule. And with the tendencies that we're seeing now, we really do have to be alert. Civil society has to be alert. Other political actors have to be alert. The media have to be alert. We've got to push back and ensure that it's not just a free ride for this administration.
INEC. It seems like we've run out of steam with regards to holding INEC responsible. If you look at how the conversation concerning INEC in the 2023 general election, then you look at Ondo State, the conversation is tapering. Why are we losing steam with regards to holding INEC accountable? You're not seeing as much advocacy for BVAS. We're not, that energy, that fervor that was there initially has waned. Do you think people are just accepting that?
Yeah, it's almost looking like a fait accompli for a lot of people. Like, there's nothing we can do, but we can't afford to give up. Edo elections, I actually saw reports where people tallied the election results that were uploaded into IREV and the results that were actually declared, and there were significant discrepancies. So when you've got that, but on the flip side, you can't get redress in court because the bar, the proof of burden, the burden of proof, and the bar that you need to rise above to prove your case in court is very high. When the court, especially the Supreme Court of the country, also rules and says that INEC is not under obligation to follow its own guidelines that were based on the Electoral Act, which draws its power from the Constitution, then you find that the entire process had been undermined. And the will, the energy to fight may actually dwindle, like you say, because people will wonder, where is the hope? What can we do? Short of, taking up arms and fighting, which nobody would encourage, what can we do? The court that you're supposed to go to actually validated clear travesty that came from INEC. The court actually validated that. When the court is no longer available as the, in quotes, last hope of the common man, you are treading on very dangerous grounds. And, people lose interest and just say, look, you guys are going to win anyway. Just go ahead and do your thing. When civil society and other political actors are also beginning to say, look, what's the point of going to court? We're really treading on dangerous grounds. And I think that it's in the enlightened self-interest of the president and the ruling party to not allow that dissent to continue, because that's the beginning of anarchy. Once people lose confidence in the ability to get redress in court, you are no longer running, a democracy. So I think that's what's responsible for what you speak about, and I think it's time for the judiciary to look very carefully at itself and find its way back. We're getting a lot of inexplicable rulings from that angle, and it's not doing Nigeria any good.
Right.
Do you want to comment?
That's it. Yeah, no,
Okay.
no, go ahead.
Good. So, do you think, with all this voter apathy going on, do you think, and the fact that we're talking about the judiciary now, do you think that Nigeria's democratic process could get better in the next 5-10 years? Because it doesn't look like it today as we speak. I mean, the economic indices doesn't even look like it. I mean, I was just checking through some statistics that showed me that our budget in 2010, 11, 2012 was more in dollar terms than our budget in 2025. So that's to show you a retrogression, devaluation of the lives of people, and things are not getting better. So do you think in the next 5-10 years, people will they'll still believe in democracy? And also looking at the 2027 election, a lot of people think, the incumbent is going to he's going to work his way through. The power of incumbency and all of that. So people are getting up not to. We keep encouraging people out there to come out, but they feel there's nothing. Yeah. So do you think things are going to get better?
One has to remain hopeful, because once
hope is not a strategy.
It is not a strategy, but it's a critical requirement to stay alive. And if you are not alive, then strategy is useless in itself. So I will remain hopeful that things will get better eventually. We can't keep going down, it's got to get dark, and then at some point, the sun must shine again. So we have to look at it from that perspective and hope that some sort of turning point will be attained, and some sort of focal event will eventually...
What do you think has to
eventually give? Something has to give.
What has to give?
At the end of the day, the rate we're going, I think it will likely come from the people.
Are the people ready?
Poverty.
Are the people ready to be able to demand better
they
electoral
obviously
reform?
are not. They obviously are not.
The field is grunting from 2023.
But we'll get there. And I say we'll get there simply because I've seen it happen in this country just a few years, last year, 2023, the cash crunch of the redesign process, the currency redesign thing. For the first time in a long time, I saw spontaneous protests that were not led by any civil society, any politician. People were just hungry. People couldn't get their money. People were queuing up at banks, sleeping at banks.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Unfortunately, our time is up. We could go on. This is such an engaging conversation. Yeah. Mr. Segun Sopitan, thank you so much. Are you headed to Ondo State? You'll be observing
online.
From home. Online, all right. Well, we wish the good people of Ondo State a peaceful and free and fair election tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.